Welcome, YouTube. Today I'm at the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. The museum has one of the world's finest collections of Western and Native American art. The museum also hosts events and artistic competitions. If you'll stick around to the end, I'll have some footage from the museum's annual Chuck Wagon Festival. I'll also have some tips to help you improve your own museum photography. This sculpture, Honeymoon at Crow Fair by Jim Coleman, is part of the museum's Prix de West collection. We'll be looking at more Prix de West items in the Prix de West gallery later on in the video. The museum lobby is dominated by James Earl Frazier's The End of the Trail. I exposed the highlights and pulled up the shadows in Lightroom. The William S. and Ann Atherson Gallery is the first major gallery that you see on entering the museum. It has a number of works, including painting by John J. Audubon, there are plaster sculptures of Lewis and Clark. A large landscape by Albert Bierstadt. Paintings are flat, so I could open up the aperture to keep the ISO down and still have enough depth of field. The faster the lens, the lower the ISO and noise. A cell phone camera with good low light capability is a good alternative. The same principles apply to this shot of Thomas Moran's painting of the lower folds of the Yellowstone. I want to talk a little bit about museum photography. Museums are popular tourist attractions. People like to take pictures in museums, but they're often disappointed by the results. Their pictures are often noisy, and sometimes they're not even sharp. I'm going to explain why this happens and give you some tips to help you take better museum pictures. The main problem in museum photography is that museums are almost always poorly lit, at least for photographic purposes. Bright light causes pigments to fade, whether they are in oil paints or the silver halides in a photographic print. Museums keep the lights low in order to preserve their often priceless works, and they won't let you add light either. And on-camera flash really isn't a very good way to photograph a painting anyway. You'll just end up with a hot spot that's blown out if you're using any flash small enough to mount on the camera. Museums generally won't let you use a tripod or monopod either, which limits your shutter speed to what you can hand hold. In-body image stabilization, or IBIS, can really help here. Modern camera bodies have IBIS systems that can let you shoot with shutter speeds 6 stops or more slower than the standard 1/over focal length rule. Museums are one of the places where fast prime lenses shine. Even pro zooms rarely offer apertures wider than f2.8, but f1.4 prime lenses are readily available for DSLR and mirrorless cameras. That extra 2 stops of light makes a big difference. Another factor in low light performance is the size of the individual photoreceptors on the camera's sensor. For any given sensor size, the sensor with lower resolution, and therefore larger photoreceptors, will generally produce less noise in low light situations. For example, the Sony A7 III is a full-frame camera with 24 megapixel resolution. The Sony A7S III is a full-frame camera with only 12 megapixels. Its larger pixels make it a low-light beast capable of shooting usable images at over 50,000 ISO. For shooting stills in a museum, the ideal camera setup is a full-frame, medium-resolution camera body with IBIS, paired with a fast prime lens in the 35 to 55 millimeter focal length range. Lenses longer than 55 millimeter may make it hard to get large paintings in the frame. Lenses shorter than 35 millimeters may distort if you get close enough to fill the frame. Today I'm going to be using the Sony A7 III paired with Sigma's 35mm f1.4 DGDN art lens. I'll also be shooting video with a DJI Osmo Pocket 3. But if you don't have and can't afford a full-frame camera and fast glass, there are still options to help you improve your results. There are software tools that can significantly reduce noise in post. Adobe's Lightroom has a denoise function that is kind of slow and clunky but effective. Topaz AI does an even better job, but that's extra money. If you need to use denoise software, you should usually use it early in your workflow. That way you're making your adjustments to a clean image. In particular, you don't want to sharpen or boost the contrast of noise. This sculpture, titled The Buffalo Signal by Frederic Remington, is one of the museum's many Remington sculptures. This clip was shot with the DJI Osmo Pocket 3. It's quite good in low light. This gallery is dedicated to the works of Charles Schreyvogel. Schreyvogel lived in New Jersey and never actually went west. He did study Western-style artifacts and often included them in his paintings. And he painted things that were described to him, but he never went west. One of the things that's interesting about his work is that he liked to paint under natural light, and so he would set up on the roof of his apartment building in Hoboken, New Jersey. This painting on the skirmish line includes several Western-style artifacts, and here are models of those artifacts. Schreyvogel would have painted based on those. This sculpture, titled The Last Drop by Schreyvogel, depicts a cavalry trooper watering his horse out in the middle of nowhere. It's based on one of Schreyvogel's earlier paintings. Gallery features a number of paintings and sculptures by Frederic Remington. Here we have the Mountain Man. The Outlaw. The Bronco Buster. Coming Through the Rye, one of Remington's better known sculptures. Trooper of the Plains. And the Scalp. He also brought back artifacts. Bronze sculptures can be tricky to photograph. Their dark color tends to throw off camera light meters. I spot metered and focused on the cowboy's face, dialed in a negative 1.3 stops of exposure compensation, and because the picture came out a little bit noisy, I ran it through Lightroom's denoise function. This gallery contains a number of works by Charles M. Russell. This wall is mostly early works before he went to New York in 1903. He didn't really take instruction when he was in New York, but he met a number of other artists who were able to give him some pointers about using light. And his later works reflect more awareness of light. He uses more dramatic light in many of his later works. There's an exhibit of miniature sculptures and paintings by Russell. And here's some of Russell's later paintings. You see, he uses a little more dramatic light in these. Sculpture titled One in a Thousand is by Solon H. Borglum. Amazing balance on this sculpture. The horse and the rider are supported by so little. Here's another Borglum sculpture, Last Wing Wild Horses. Again, I used negative exposure compensation and used Lightroom's denoise to reduce the noise in the photo. Exhibits and cases often have annoying reflections. I was able to use Lightroom Classic's AI content removal tool to reduce the reflections and glare in this photo. Here's another example. Pay special attention to the dress on the left. The reflections are gone and it looks much better in this version. The Robert T. Stewart Native American Gallery is a wonderful collection of Native American art and Native American artifacts. Here he has some beautiful Native American jewelry pieces. Baskets, pottery, beadwork, wood carvings, and woven rugs. This Western Performers Gallery features performers from Western movies, television shows. Kirk Douglas, James Stewart, and of course John Wayne. Here's an exhibit of firearms that belong to John Wayne. And this gallery is dedicated to American Rodeo. The gallery has displays of precursors to modern rodeo, Mexican charreada. There are also displays devoted to informal cowboy competitions where they would show off as who was the best rider. The old Wild West shows that were common and popular in the late 1800s. And then the modern sport of rodeo today. There are also exhibits dedicated to rodeo greats such as Jim Shoulders and Larry Mahan. Awards for major rodeos included massive belt buckles and custom saddles. This gallery celebrates the U.S. Army in the West with displays of uniforms, saddles, weapons. Here's a Gatling gun. Had Custer not elected to leave his behind, Little Bighorn might have turned out differently. The sculpture titled Riding a Rank One is part of the museum's Prix de West collection. The Weitzenhoffer collection of fine firearms. Here we have some early Colt firearms, including revolving carbines and rifles. Here are some Colt conversions from muzzle loading to cartridge firearms. And a collection of Colt cartridge revolvers. Here's a collection of Colt cartridge long arms. There are shotguns. The lever action rifle is a Colt Burgess, not a Winchester, even though it kind of looks like one. The case has a pair of Sharps breech loading rifles. And here we have a selection of Winchester rifles, including one cutaway that lets you see how the action worked. It took 3 stops of exposure compensation to avoid blowing the highlights out on this Colt revolver. I hope you're enjoying the video. If you are enjoying the video, please take a moment to hit the like button. And if you'd like to be notified about future videos, please take a moment to hit the subscribe button and click that notify bell. Thanks. Next up, we have a Kiowa Tipi. The Tipi was easy to set up, easy to take down. Its support poles could be used to make a travois to carry the tribe's possessions. It was a very useful adaptation to the life on the plains. Here's a recreation of a Pueblo tribe dwelling. These would be built on the side of a cliff, affording excellent defensibility against other tribes. This gallery showcases former winners of the Prix de West Invitational competition. The Prix de West Invitational is the world's largest competition for Western art. The winner receives a substantial prize and the museum buys the winning piece. This year's Prix de West contestants will go on display May the 31st and will be on display until July the 4th. There will be a sale of art from the competition on the weekend of June 7th and 8th. Prosperity Junction is the museum's recreation of a turn of the 20th century Western town. The light levels in Prosperity Junction are quite low. It's tough to get good photographs, But I was able to get some pretty good shots with my Google Pixel 8 Pro using night mode. The DJI Osmo Pocket 3 is a low light beast, but even it struggled in Prosperity Junction's low light. Again, the Pixel 8 Pro's night mode came through on this shot. Here's some footage from the Chuck Wagon Festival. We have a guy who is demonstrating the art of flint knapping, or shaping tools out of flint. The museum also had displays of the 1800s equivalents of certain modern conveniences, along with docents to explain just how they were used. Such as this 1800s electric blanket that you filled with hot water and put it under the covers with you to warm the bed. The Sears Roebuck catalog, 1800s equivalent of Amazon online. And the 1800s equivalent of Keurig and a microwave.
You know why this was a microwave, right? Because you cooked your breakfast in it.
Right.
Okay, if you didn't eat everything,
you had
put it back on the fire and add a little more vegetable, and you had it for dinner. And then if you didn't eat all the dinner, then it was there in the morning, put some more juice back down, and you had a few more vegetables and an egg, and you had it for breakfast. So it was on the
convenient.
Or on the fire, 24 till all of it was gone, and then we started all over. But that's why it's doing.
In conclusion, there are a lot of good options for shooting good museum photographs. The best option, if you can afford it, is a mirrorless full-frame camera with fast glass. But if that's not in your budget, you can do a lot to reduce noise with software in post. Lightroom's denoise, Topaz AI are both good options. And some cell phones have very good low light mode capabilities. The Google Pixel 8 Pro is one of those. I've used that before, and it takes good low light photos. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy the video, please take a moment to hit the like button. If you'd like to be notified about future videos, please take a moment to click the subscribe and the notify bell. Thanks again for watching. Bye-bye.